Hello, I'm Toycat, and the Olympics is officially finished, which means these are the final results. And I'll be honest, I don't really watch the Olympics. It's not something that makes perfect sense to compare golds across different sports, but what is fascinating is if you just do that anyway, and then you consider who is actually winning. As you can see, the largest economies are the biggest winners, but then you get some real wildcard countries like Australia in 4th, or Great Britain over here with the 3rd highest total medals, or even New Zealand and Canada, although you could still say all of the top 12 countries are fairly wealthy. But what's Uzbekistan doing in 13th place? It's not a large country in terms of population, it's not a large country in terms of wealth. How does it have so many medals? Let's talk about some of the oddball countries at the Olympics. Let's talk about the weird historicness of that, because you can see all-time winners, and I think that's very interesting. And then let's also talk about bids for the next Olympics, which are happening right now, because are you curious where those are going to happen? I know I would be. Let's talk about that and not the actual Olympics itself, because as much as I love the Olympic sport of breakdancing, which by the way, breakdancing apparently gets a medal, but chess doesn't. I thought it did because I was fascinated that a Uzbekistan player won the last chess Olympiad, but the Olympiad is not a part of the Olympics, and so if you check Uzbekistan, despite being the best in the world, they have no chess titles. Although what they do have, interestingly, is a common theme amongst all of their different sports. So here's the deal with the Olympics. It seems as though every country is coming together to see who is best in the world at a thing, and that is technically true, but there's also a little bit of a technicality on that, well, you can't actually see who is best in the world at something, because fundamentally to go to the Olympics, you need to have all sorts of travel and expenses covered, and it means that generally speaking, wealthier countries cannot just send people to the Olympics, which, you know, those costs can be covered, but also can go through all of the effort of training their people so they can have the world's best 3x3 basketball player, or archerist, what do you call an archery person, or artistic gymnastics, or indeed, if you look through the list of USA medals, you'll see a wide range of sports, which is why being the wealthiest country in the world matters more than having the highest population. Even though the US and China both had 40 golds, they have more total medals for the US, which is how a lot of people choose to you actually go through with this, which is why it's so interesting that the 3rd highest number of medals, after the 2 largest economies in the world, is not Japan, but instead is Great Britain, where as you can see, there's not a lot of golds here, but there's 22 silvers and 29 bronzes. Could you call that unluckiness, or could you say that we're perpetually 2nd or 3rd best at things? I hope that you choose the first one. But as you can see, looking through this, you can see, okay, cycling, BMX freestyle, cycling, mountain bike, there's lots of different medals for all sorts of different sports, but interestingly, you're not going to be good at cycling unless you have a bike, or given the right sort of bike, and honestly, the right arena to actually practice that in. Maybe not true for cycling mountain bike, but if we compare Great Britain to, say, the first developing country, I mean, I think Uzbekistan would be the best one, but if we go to Kenya, how many cycling medals are they winning? The answer is none. How many horse riding medals are they winning? The answer is none. In fact, it's all in athletics, because athletics is one of those few sports where it's entirely down to you as a person, which is why Kenya does much better than Sweden, who instead are good at beach volleyball and judo and sailing and table tennis. I think it's funny. Anyway, the point here is to say is that you need to, being good at sports is not just about raw ability, but is also about how much you can nurture the right people. This is a kind of wider point about economies. If you've ever wondered, like, okay, why doesn't the next big business, you know, how do so many businesses come out of Sweden, like the Ikeas, the Minecrafts, and if you look next door, you get the Legos of the world from Denmark too. How do small countries produce such culturally important things given their population? And the answer is, it doesn't matter how many people you have, it matters how much money you spend. I don't think this is news to anyone, but I think it is worth noting as you look through this, that the reason that France and the Netherlands and Australia can do so well is Australia is incredibly wealthy. It temporarily goes back and forth as to whether it's the wealthiest country per person on planet Earth, but Australians are doing very, very, very well. I feel like it's one of those facts you forget about if you're, say, very focused on North America and thinking like, yeah, the US is #1, China's #2, and it's like, yeah, as total numbers, that's true. When you're talking about per capita on GDP, you get places like Singapore and Qatar, but these are places that get a lot of foreign money coming through them. When you're talking about relative prosperity by itself, Australia is doing nuts, and so how does that nuts translate into medals? The answer is is you can have 20-ish million people, just over, and you can still get more medals than Japan. You can still get more golds than France or the Netherlands or Korea, because if you have the money, you can invest in those weird sports, and they still do have some people who are good at athletics, to be fair to them, but just not as many as the countries that have a lot of natural talent, but not as much money to spend on it. Anyway, the other interesting thing here is if we start looking through, you can see there's some surprise countries when we go down. Like Iran is actually 21st place. Again, you can see Uzbekistan is all fighting sports, which is kind of raw talent with a little bit of money in there. And then you can start scrolling down, and as you get to the bottom, you get some really weird results. You also get some interesting cases where, like, wait, is China having 3 teams? Hong Kong, China, as well as Chinese Taipei, as well as the People's Republic of China? If you count China, the national entity, if you count the self-governing country, then China actually won the Olympics, but they deliberately choose to split up their teams that way. Why do they do that? Well, I mean, you could probably answer, why does the United Kingdom send a team for Great Britain and then a team for Northern Ireland? Well, they'd actually, you know, don't ask what actually happens with the Northern Irish people. You know, it's one of those, as a country, we do a very good job in the UK at just trying to pretend that Northern Ireland doesn't exist. It's been working for a little bit, and don't make us bring it up anymore. But yeah, more seriously though, if you start looking at the all-time Olympics medal table, you get basically the same result, but with some more interesting wildcard outcomes, such as the fact that, yeah, the UK is, or Great Britain, GBR, which is what we always compete as, is third, and they're not third to China, they're third to the Soviet Union. That's right, in the next Olympics, you can be fairly sure that the Great Britain, the UK, whichever one you want to say, is going to overtake the Soviet Union, because the Soviet Union has not been participating in the Olympics. Interestingly, I'm just going to quickly Control F just to be sure, actually. Soviet Unions did not compete in the 2024, but interesting, if you type Russia, they didn't either. Wow, why is Russia not competing at the Olympics? Is Russia doing something wrong right now? Why is the refugee Olympic team there, but Russia's not scoring any medals? Well, that's why I wanted to show you this article. It is, I feel like I could spend like just days talking about weird Wikipedia articles, but the all-time Olympics medal table shows you some oddball countries that are really, really successful, like East Germany is all the way up here, almost as successful as regular Germany, which includes East and West Germany. Anyway, the point here is to say, is then you start to get some weird teams, like the United Team of Germany, which was during some weird teams there, the unified team of the former Soviet Union at the 1992 Winter Olympics in Albertville. Where is Albertville? Is that... Oh, it's in, okay, it's in southeastern France. There's a reason I don't care about it. Anyway, so as you can see, looking through the list, you get some really, really oddball ones. But then something fun is you can see there are countries that have never won an Olympics medal. They go to the Olympics every year and they don't win. And this is where Russia must be, because, I mean, they're not on the medals table, right? But more seriously, you can see American Samoa never won an Olympics. Andorra never won anything at the Olympics. And this kind of makes sense. No matter how much money you have, Andorra, it doesn't matter if you have 60,000 people, you need to have an incredible good luck to actually have one of those people end up being great there. But Angola, Antigua, I think if we start to look through these, the most surprising would be the Democratic Republic of the Congo. This is a country of a higher population than the UK and Australia. Wait, let's get this right. 105 million people live there. It has a higher population than the UK, or than Great Britain, let's say, the Netherlands, and Australia put together, and they have fewer medals than all three. They have the same number of medals as me. One person living in the UK. And why is that? Well, don't look into Dr. Congo if you're not feeling like a sad day. So instead what we'll say is, yeah, looking at the list of teams here, you get some interesting ones, and you also start to get some defunct National Olympic Committees. So you get Bohemia, which temporarily was its whole own thing until something happened. Who's to say what happened to Bohemia? Why did the Kingdom of Bohemia go away? I certainly don't want to look into that one. Anyway, British West Indies was an interesting team too. They competed as a shared team before breaking up. Although when they broke up, it looks like it's bad news for some of the British West Indies. And then if you look into it, you can see Czechoslovakia, East Germany, West Germany, Netherlands, Antilles, Russian Empire, Soviet Union's on here too, with the largest number of medals, it has to be said. And then Yugoslavia is also on there. But then interestingly, at the same time as countries that stopped existing and still have medals, you have special delegations which aren't countries but still still do. So at one point, Australasia, Australia and New Zealand competed as one team. At one point, individual neutral athletes competed as one team. Why is this? I assumed it would be the Russia thing, by the way, but apparently it was independent athletes from North Macedonia, East Timor, South Sudan, and Curacao, which is because there was a time. Basically, 1990 was a wacky time for the world, and so there are countries that couldn't register in time, it looks like. The refugee Olympic team is wild. That to me, the United Team of Germany makes some sense. Unified team, like I said before, is a sports team for the former Soviet Union. They'd already been planned, and so they just went anyway. The ROC, Russian Olympic Committee, they had to compete under not the Russian name because of the doping scandal, which makes no sense to me. Independent, either the athletes are fit to compete at the Olympics, or they're not fit to compete. You can't be like, they're Olympic athletes from Russia, but not for Russia. Makes no sense. Anyway, the ROC, independent, but the point here is to say is there are lots and lots and lots of really, really interesting countries which formerly competed at the Olympics. And so now that we've gone through that, I want to just say one last time, Great Britain clearly doing pretty well. By the way, if you just type in Northern Ireland, you'll find that they suspiciously aren't anywhere except 1924 to present. But yeah, there's an interesting thing where if you're Northern Irish, in basically every sport, but specifically with the Olympics, you get to choose whether you are British or Irish. And so, do you want to be competing for team number 4 over here, or do you want to be competing for, where are you at, Ireland? We'll find you eventually. Ireland. Yeah, I think this is Ireland right here. The flag looks right. But yeah, do you want to compete for... I can't make this. There's going to be someone who takes that too seriously and threatens to explode me and my family. So instead, here is Ireland, as you can see. And by the way, I am Irish. I feel like I have to clarify that also. You'd be hurting yourself. It'd be friendly fire. But the important thing here is to say that Ireland's down here. But a lot of people do compete based on how they feel, because that's what the Olympics is. It's a big expression of feelings, not in the more literal sense. If you haven't seen this, by the way, you probably should at some point. It is a very, very, very goofy little story. Anyway, but it's not based on your feelings outside of breakdancing, but actually it is based on your feelings, even including breakdancing. So now there's one last thing I want to go into, which is, did you know the Olympics get selected way ahead of time? The Olympics is held somewhere different every time. So you might recall going all the way back to Tokyo 2020, which definitely happened in 2020, as best I can remember. If you go back to Rio, you go to 2016, you get to London in 2012. That's kind of fun, huh? But yeah, basically the Olympics go somewhere different every single year in a not surprising event. But what is interesting is the fact that it's going to LA, and this has already been determined for 2028, but also it's going to Australia for 2032. And just now, just as soon as the Olympics has been confirmed here, we're now working on the 2036 Olympics. There's two reasons for this. One is like stability. Everyone knows where it's going. They can work things out way ahead of time. This works out quite well in the Olympics' favor. And the other one is it gives cities a time to compete. So after going to Australia and Los Angeles, it looks as though the United States and Australia, two of the most successful countries, it looks like it might go to Indonesia or to Turkey or to India or to Chile. So it's going to be going to a interesting country on an interesting continent, and at least, from the perspective of someone who lives in the West and therefore doesn't spend a lot of time in Indonesia, I think it is a very, very intriguing one. If it was in Istanbul, you could theoretically have a cross-continental Olympics game, but what's even more interesting is the fact that if you look through here, you can see there are other potential bids still to come in, like Egypt is thinking of hosting, Asia in South Korea, they're looking at hosting, so the mayor said he is pursuing to host the 2036 Olympics quietly. I don't know how you would host an Olympics quietly. There's a lot of cheering at the ones I'm familiar with. But yeah, basically there are lots of cities that are considering hosting, but these are the 4 that they're looking at right now. And I think it's very, very interesting how far in advance some things like this are determined. I can't tell you what I'll be doing in 12 years, but if I worked at the Olympics, I apparently would be able to. So one last thing before we go, and that is the fact that one last time, chess is not at the Olympics. Why not? I'm still disappointed by that. But as you can see, Uzbekistan is feeling the serious sting of the lack of medals there. But more seriously, my final kind of takeaway from the Olympics is it's really cool to follow on this like kind of meta level. But ultimately, I feel like there is no one who can actually follow the Olympics fully because it's so many different sports. Who cares about canoes? I'm sticking with it. Who cares about the canoe slalom? Who cares about rugby sevens? Actually, wait. America won rugby sevens? They came third still. For women, okay. Though, but you know, I'm still surprised by that. There is rugby in the United States. I genuinely didn't know they knew what that was. What did we win some rugby medals? America won more rugby medals than the UK did. Did France get all the rest? Where's all the... Okay, rugby sevens, they got the gold. For men. Anyway, the point here is to say, who else is winning rugby? I want to know so bad now, so we can switch to medalists. And I think the interesting thing about the Olympics is it's a thing that we look at from the country perspective. That's why stripping the Russian athletes of their Russian flag was such a big deal. But when you actually look at it more precisely, it's like, yeah, actually, it's a bunch of individual people going to individual sports and maybe doing pretty well. Let's go see who's at the very bottom of this list. There's going to be someone with just a single bronze that's just happy to be there. You know, congratulations from Zambia. Congratulations on winning coming third in the men's 400s. These are the people that deserve our real praise and attention. But yeah, more seriously, as we scroll back up the list here, I feel like the Olympics is this, like, individual... It's about finding the very best person in the world at something, and somehow we manage to make it about countries anyway, which shows something incredible about humans, which is, no matter how much you try to remove the country from something, you'll eventually just end up adding it back in there and making it a nationalist thing anyway, because now I get to be real proud of... Oh, nah, man, how low down are we till we find someone? I get to be real proud of Emma Finucane, and as a British person like Emma, we are basically, you know, the same level of athleticness, and so as a result, by being from the same island and the same political entity taxes us and, pays for vital infrastructure. As a result, we're basically the same, and I can cheer when she wins, but when Murphy Ryan wins, I'm not happy with her at all. Anyway, with that said, thank you for watching today's video. I feel like we went a little bit too deep on the Olympics, but welcome to the channel. I hope you enjoyed it anyway, and I think I'm going to make a video about countries soon. I've got a lot of travel plans that are very exciting lined up right now, and I'd love to... I'm going to the Dedham Vale AONB. This is my next country I'm going to. Why do I have this open? What was I looking at over here? You know, this video is over, except it's not really. What's happening in Dedham? I want to know, why is it called Dedham? Is it really dead? That are all the pigs not alive? Anyway, the important thing is I have some fun travel plans to some countries booked, and I'm very excited to share what those are. But for now, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time, unless you're not from a country on this table, in which case you suck. Yeah, go Olympic team winners. #1. Goodbye.